of the brethren like getting frustrated because nobody's listening, and nobody's watching, and nobody's trying to find out all the bad stuff I did. Oh yeah, that guy that preached to us, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Because everybody is going to be so captivated by worshiping Jesus, including myself, because He's forgiven me, and He's not going to remember what I've done. That just this beautiful atmosphere of worship is going to take over. Jesus will be shaped in worth. We will be shaped in worth because He's forgiven us and He loves us. And so true worship really is love. If you read the Old Testament, you're going to be amazed that it's just a history of, God saving Israel, Israel going back to idolatry. 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 I could do this all day. It's just this cycle. And you're like, oh my gosh, they're so stupid. Why were they doing that? But we're not really different. Now maybe their idolatry was weird. Like they had stone statues and wooden statues, and they did sacrifices, and they did some other stuff they weren't supposed to do. And this was a constant problem for them. But what really idolatry was, and I actually quoted this from my wife who said this one day, I thought this was really good. Idolatry is the most serious charge in the Bible, since it is the ultimate expression of unfaithfulness to the God. It occurs when we place a higher value on something that effectively replaces God in our lives. Idolatry occurs when we place higher value on something that replaces God in our life. So my free time can become an idol. My internet usage can become an idol. My sports obsession can become an idol. Even my love of music can become an idol. And so we have to be very, very careful of idolatry. Because, all through the Old Testament, when Israel was caught in idolatry, God called them an adulteress. God called them an unfaithful wife. When Israel was stuck in idolatry, He said that they were being unfaithful. And so that's a very serious charge. Oh, I had it. There we go. There's the quote from my wife. My wife's so smart. She's smarter than I am. She sings better too. Alright. Actually,
can you go back?
I can.
Put it on Wikipedia.
I should.
Yeah.
Hey, Dama. Hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Okay. Hello. Hi. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. Jesus said that there's no greater love than a man would lay down his life for another. And so if maybe I can make sense of those Exodus references earlier on, I believe the original altar that was for killing goats and animals, I believe it was just a sign of what true worship was going to be, what true sacrifice was going to be. When one of us lays down our life for another, not necessarily literally dying for each other, or maybe, but laying down your life for somebody is laying down your affections, laying down your time, laying down what you want for the other person. So there's no greater love than this. So therefore, there's no greater worship. There's no greater worship than when we would lay down our lives. And that's why Abraham was so cool with his son. Even if Isaac didn't necessarily appreciate that. I mean, all joking aside, but Abraham, wow, what a sacrifice. Mary with her perfume, what a sacrifice. Paul with his reputation and his whole life dedicated to doing something, then just to give it up, just to stop being a Pharisee. And so, really true worship is really when we just ascribe worth to God. And so whether you do that through your songs, whether you do that through how you use your money, whether you do that through how you use your time, did I already say that? Time, money. Your affections, that's what really worship is. And I guess what's kind of cool is today, even though we're already shaped, we all have our forms, some of us a little rounder in the middle than others, but we all have our shapes. we're actually being shaped by Him when we worship Him. You know, as I worship Him, He actually can come and now and shape my character. And like, do you know that we actually share like 97% of the elements of dirt? Our human bodies share the same. So I think Genesis 1 is actually scientific when it says He formed us out of dirt. The elements are the same. And so I'm still a mound of dirt. You're still a mound of dirt. And I mean, I hope I'm not offending you by saying that, but I mean, I think we're more important than dirt. But what happens to us when we die? We go on the ground and we become dirt. So what's kind of cool is I'm just this mound of dirt, but like when I worship Him, He actually can like, come into my life and make me more. He can shape me in His image. He can make me more like Him. And I think that's why like worship, what we do today is so cool. I guess I could have done a better job talking about Exodus and all that stuff, but not on a Saturday afternoon. But if I can just say something about the Bible, it is old. It is old. It talks about things that happened 4,000 years ago with Moses and all that kind of stuff. But what I always try to do when I read the Bible is I look for Jesus. Because I think it's all about Him. I think the whole Bible is about Jesus. I think it's His story, even before He came to the earth. And, you know, in the Gospel of John, He says that nothing was created that wasn't created by Him, by Jesus. And so that's kind of cool. Like if you think about Jesus in His position before He came to earth, He was responsible for it all. Like the Father basically looked at the Son and said, "It's your show. Go to town. Do what you want." So that's kind of cool. And so He's just been, when I read like things about like you know, Moses in the wilderness or Israel and their kings, like I always look for like references to Jesus. And so like being told to sacrifice blood on a mound of dirt, and then the fact that Jesus went into the ground, like His bloody body went into the dirt, like I see a connection. I see a parallel. And so I try to like always get something from those Old Testament scriptures that will help me love Him and understand Him more. And I guess that's what I was trying to do by including that part in this presentation. But worship, you know, when Stephen said that you guys wanted to talk about worship, I was like, yeah, let's talk about worship. And we talk about singing. I'll end by repeating myself. Singing is an important part of worship. It is. But worship has to be about just giving worth, always giving worth, giving value, giving importance to God. And so the songs we choose to sing should always put us in that place. I love beats, I love melodies, I love rhythms, but I never want to sing songs just for that reason in church. I want to make sure that the words, that the mood that the songs create, that the atmosphere that's created is one that makes us, or puts us in a place where we can choose to give Him worth. And so worship is actually worthship. Being in the state, being in the rank, being in the position, having the talent, the skill of ascribing, of giving worth to God.
So anybody has anything to say? Any questions? Any comments?
Now, I have a feeling when you originally suggested the topic for the afternoon, it was more in line with music. I don't know who recommended talking about worship.
Yeah, the plan was because the board meeting has suggested to let the youth lead Sunday worship.
Yes.
Like every few months, I don't know, 3 months or something like that, to let them be part of the designer of leading the worship, and having presiders or whatever who are youth and leading that. And so that's why we had the idea of talking about that in the afternoon, so that we can, well, now that you talk about it, helps us understand why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And also to, you know, maybe plan it or or something like that, right? To maybe design it and see how can we, I don't know, design a worship. I mean, we could do it the way they do it, or we could do it our own way.
Yeah, worship. You know, I played you that Pet Shop Boys song last night, and to give thanks, like it's the same. But like I think the guy that wrote "Give Thanks," he just wanted to take a popular song that people knew, but then put godly lyrics to it. I heard one guy in a church one time take this song from U2, "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For," and sing it like to God. I've heard people take like love songs and sing them to Jesus. Some people like that. Some people hate it. And I think, you know, kind of what's important when you guys, you know, lead worship is you're not just leading songs. Like, you can choose songs. Like, Julie gets frustrated all the time because, like, she'll choose a new song and, like, nobody will sing it. And I just say, listen, they don't know the song. You listen to it all week long, you watch it on YouTube, you sing in the car, you sing in, you know, at the desk, and you feel things. They've never heard it before. So you can't expect them within a minute to be like, you know, oh, I love you, God. You know, like you need to, you actually have to take a very practical approach sometimes to music. You have to understand that you'll probably need to sing it 2 or 3 weeks in a row before anybody responds. And sometimes a song you love, everybody's going to hate. They're not gonna go for it. So unfortunately, as worship leaders, you have a choice to make. I've met some worship leaders that are like, I don't care if you like it, you're gonna like it. And I've met other worship leaders that are just like, my church doesn't like this, so I'm not even gonna try. So you have to decide how you're gonna be, especially as a youth band or a youth worship team. Do you want to like revolutionize your church? Do you want to do an easy transition? Or do you want to just keep going what's going? And I think all are good. I don't know about your experience, but we went through this phase where we used to just do hymns, the old hymns. Mm-hmm. We had this like red hymnal book, and you know, every Sunday you came to church and you took your red hymnal book.
In the old church we used to do that. It used to be hymns, and it was after we split that we started singing more choruses and stuff.
And I remember we went into, you know, we used to have the acetate. No project, just like the acetate, and you shot it up on the wall, and you know, we did that for a long time. And I started playing drums in my church when I was 15, and I'm 40, so 25 years ago. I've been in worship for 25 years, and you know, it was weird because it used to be like we only have a Sunday night chorus service. The rest of the time it was hymns. And then I remember the day that we put the hymnal books away for the last time. We were not going to use them anymore. And some older people went into the room and, like, you know, took them anyways, and they sat in their seat holding them like a symbol to, you know, and they wouldn't sing the choruses. I mean, come on. That's just immature. And these were 60-year-old people, mature Christians, basically saying, I'm not singing your songs. You know what I mean? Like, my goal today was hopefully to get across that real worship, like when Jesus says the Father is looking for those who will worship Him in spirit and in truth. You know what I love about that verse is everybody thinks it's the Holy Spirit. It's not. If you look at the original Greek word, the Aramaic word that Jesus was using, it's actually spirit, like small s spirit, from your soul. God is looking for people who will worship Him from their soul, from the actual word means the seat of your emotion, the place of your emotion. I don't know what you guys like, but like I used to be, I'm still a little bit, but I used to be a big hockey fan. So like when the Canadians would score a goal, I would like, yeah! That's my emotion. That's the seat of my emotion. We all of us have something that triggers that emotional response. It could be a new music song, it could be a new video game, it could be a new cologne or perfume. We all have something we like that creates a response, an emotional response, where we don't control our emotions, where we don't push them down. And God, Jesus says, God is looking for people who will worship Him in spirit and in truth. Now, what does it mean to worship God in truth? It means that it's about God. It's not about the song. It's not about the church. It's not about the instrument I get to play. It's not about my performance. It's not about it's about God, shaping Him in worth. And if we do that, He'll meet us. If we do that, He will meet with us. He will talk to us. He will share with us. He will help us. I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about this tonight or not, but I think now would be maybe more appropriate. I've had the chance over the last year and a half to visit actually almost all of our churches in Canada. And they invite me to go and speak, and they usually ask me to minister, like to pray for people and whatever afterwards. And I can tell you, the services where I worshiped God, like where I really worshipped Him, like I forgot about where I was, I forgot about what I was doing, I forgot about my message, I forgot about my notes, and I just worshipped Him. The coolest things happened in church. And probably the craziest thing, and I'll tell you, and maybe you'll kick me out of the house after, I don't know, but I was in Toronto last year, and this happened. I just started worshiping God, and I think I cried a little, I think I raised my voice a little, but I kind of forgot. I forgot about the people around me. And then I started speaking, and after I finished speaking, the pastor of the church invited people to come up for prayer. And when I was praying for one person, and then I saw this lady approach out of the corner of my eye. And listen, guys, I wasn't hallucinating, I didn't drink or smoke anything. I saw a scar on her cheek, a white scar from her ear down to her lip. It was like a line like this. I saw it, and I just, like, I turned back to the person I was praying for. And then when I went over to her, the scar was gone. There was nothing on her face. And I was a little bit like, what is going on? But when I put my hands on her to pray for her, all of a sudden, I felt God speaking through me. And I started prophesying over her. And I spoke like in the first person, like God, and saying to this lady, you have a scar on the inside, and I, like God, I want to heal you of that scar right now. And because of this scar on the inside, you think you're ugly, but I want you to know as your Father that I think you're beautiful. And I tell you right now, you are beautiful. And while I was doing this, the pastor, I heard him whisper in her ear, he said, I told him nothing. This is God. He knows nothing. And she started crying and bawling her eyes out. And after the church service, the pastor told me, he said, that was God. He said, that woman is bulimic, anorexic. And she's purging, she's throwing up her food because she thinks she's not beautiful. And so what you just did to her, you released her, you liberated her from that. And she's changed, she stopped. So, like, I believe that happened because we were worshiping God in spirit and in truth. We were just worshiping Him, not thinking about what we were going to do, not worried about our performance. When you worship God in spirit and truth, He'll meet you where you are. He'll come and He'll help you, and He'll shape you. I love that shaping. I don't know if you ever played with Play-Doh when you were kids, but my boys love Play-Doh. It's that plasticine, and you shape it. You make things by shaping it. And that's what He does when we worship Him. And I guess that's what I was trying to tell you guys this morning. Like, I encourage you to worship Him, not to cry or to use Kleenex or have an emotional experience, but to worship Him so He can meet you. So He can, Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. I mean, when you look outside, you know God's real. You know, you just see the structures and the processes and like how amazing we are as people, and we know God's real. So why doesn't He come more? Why doesn't He show up more? Why don't we see more healings and miracles and like that part doesn't make sense unless it's because we're not really drawing close to Him, unless we're not really like approaching Him. You know, in the book of James it says, "Draw near to me so that I can draw near to you." It's almost like God has put this rule in place that He'll only act if we actually ask Him to. And that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Because it's a hard question when you say, well, why are all these people dying in Africa? Or why are all these kids going in sex slavery, you know, in the Philippines? Or, you know, and you say, well, why doesn't God do something? Well, maybe it's a law. Maybe it's a law that He's imposed, that it's like, listen, I mean, it's sad. When you read in Exodus about the Israelites, when He showed up on the mountain, it says that He was standing on Mount Horeb. And it says that they could see His feet. What? That's bizarre. Like somebody saw God's feet? That's incredible. But it says that the people didn't want to listen to Him. It says that the people told Moses, you go talk to Him, and then you tell us what He says. Now think about God for a second. Like, don't think of God as this unfeeling energy. Think of Him as like a being who the people just said, we don't want to listen to you. That would, I mean, that would hurt me. I mean, He's God, He's not me, but... And so there is this separation. And when you read the New Testament, you see that Jesus was breaking down the wall of separation. That Jesus was making now a way for us to approach Him. But the question is, do we approach Him? Do we draw near to God? Or do we just, like, sing our songs and mean them, but more like as if it's a greeting card, like yes, Lord, I love you, use my life, signed Jamie, okay, Pastor, bring this to God for me. Do you see? It's way different. It's a different attitude if I understand more like God is here, in this room, right in front of me. And when I sing these words to Him, He's listening. And He's not just listening with the attitude of, well, we'll see. He's listening like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Do you love me? Do you really want me to use your life for my glory? Will you really give me everything? Like do you believe that? Or do you imagine more God up in heaven kind of going, well, we'll see next week if they really meant. Like, how do we see God? What I'm starting to think is God loves us so much. He's willing every single time to forgive us. He's willing every single time to listen to our songs, listen to our sermons, listen to our prayers, listen to our devotions, listen to our exchanges. And when we say, man, I want to give my life to God, I want God to use me, that He believes us. And He's ready just to equip us and to give us things, because that's what I've found. When I was praying for that lady, I didn't deserve to do that. I didn't deserve to be a vehicle for Him to speak to her. I didn't deserve that. The pastor and his wife, they had been praying with this woman for months. They had been taking her out for dinner, spending hours with her, crying with her. Like, they had done all the work, and then I walk in and I prophesy to her and she says that she's delivered. That's not fair. Like, you know what I mean? I don't deserve that. But listen, I don't take any glory for that. That's God. That's God deciding to show up and do things. Why? Because I believe we were worshiping Him that day in spirit and in truth. And that's the same for all of us. We all have that access. And worship is that important. And so when you guys go to lead worship in your church, you're going to organize songs. But you know, you can lead worship. Worship, like not just singing, worship. You can lead the church into a place of ascribing worth to God. And if everybody follows you, they all from their seat of their emotions just ascribe worth to God, you could shake our church down. You could cause something to happen not just to copy the book of Acts, but to do something even greater. We're not just trying to copy the Bible. We're trying to see it as, listen, what the Bible is not about like capturing history in that moment and then the rest of eternity has to try to copy that and match up to that. The Bible is about saying, hey guys, do you realize that God did this back then? And He can do it today and He wants to do it now? And that's what we're supposed to understand from the Bible. That's supposed to be our attitude. When we preach from the Bible, we're not just supposed to say, well, Galatians 3:16 says. We're supposed to say, hey, Galatians 3:16 says this for back then. What does that mean for us today? What does that mean for you and you and you and you and me and you? What does that mean for us today? That's what we're supposed to do with the Bible. And when we worship Him, we're not just supposed to create emotions. We're supposed to use emotions to get us to the place of worshiping God. And then He can do some phenomenal, crazy things with us, individually and collectively. And so yeah, you're just choosing songs. But I think like we saw this morning, you choose songs that support the message that God wants to bring. And then people hear that and they're like, oh, I'm so glad they're singing that. Because right now, like that's what I need to say and that's what I want to say. And then as they sing it, they turn it into a prayer. And like for you, maybe it's about the key of G or the key of C or you know, chord progressions. But for them, it could make the difference in their week, you know. And I'm not saying that you can't choose songs because of the keys, but you're always aware of what can happen from the songs that you choose. Like that's the cool part of. And it's kind of like me praying for that lady. We don't deserve to do any miracles through the songs we choose, but God will make miracles happen through the songs that we sing, that we play together as a team. And listen, you change the worship in your church, I guarantee the preachers will change too. You change the atmosphere in your church through the way you worship, I promise you the way the preacher preaches will change. Can't help it. When the Spirit is there to do things like as He wants, then men and women of God will follow the Spirit. And I think worship is probably one of the most important parts of any service because it sets the atmosphere for everything else. And as I said this morning, Jesus says, I'm enthroned on the praises of my people. And we read what the throne room of God looks like. So like as we worship Him, He's up there on His throne. And all the elders around the throne get all super excited. Not because our songs sound good, but our hearts sound good. And then that means like as we worship Him up in heaven, they're just throwing themselves on the ground. Like you're making heavenly elders fall on the ground because they're just like, oh, God is just so good. And they're like falling off their thrones. I just think that's awesome. It takes a lot of faith to believe what I'm saying. I understand that. I'm a pretty rational, logical guy. I really am. So I know what I'm saying sounds a little freaky-weaky. But that's what the Bible says. So I believe it. I believe that happens. I believe that we change like heaven. We change heaven's reality when we worship. Not when we sing, when we worship. Through singing, through giving, through sacrifice, through love. That's worship.
Anybody else? John, do you have something to say?
So if we are all learning from the worship God, like you say, every one of us, we have our own problem, homework, finance, or the work or school. But if we truly worship God, God will take care of our worry.
I don't know if you want to accept this testimony as not, but I was in university. It was Easter weekend, and we were having a conference in our church. And I had an exam on the Tuesday morning, and I went to church all weekend. Now, I should have studied before Easter weekend, but like most university students, I procrastinated. And the Monday afternoon at home, I studied. I really did. But I told God in the afternoon while I was studying, I said, God, I really want to go to church tonight. I really want to go, to the final Easter service. Please help me. And I still had like 12 chapters of this book to read. And I was like, man, I'm never going to finish this. Never, never, never. So don't ask me why, I don't know. God didn't speak to me out of heaven. I just let's just read chapter 12. I remember. And so I went and I read chapter 12. I'm like, okay, I missed the rest of the book. So I didn't completely understand it, but I'm like, I think I get it. I kind of get what was happening. I go to my exam on the Tuesday. I went to church. I go to my exam on Tuesday morning. The one question worth like 30% of my final exam was on chapter 12 of the book. Coincidence or God?